very, very glad to have Azaan on the show. Azaan, welcome to Storytellers and Storysellers. Let me do a quick introduction and I'll toss it back to you for you to introduce yourself in your own style. Azaan runs
Awesome.
the Hub in Bangalore. It's one of the many things that Azaan runs. He's well on his way to be a serial entrepreneur, is the sense that I get. He's taken what is his family's legacy, probably 100-year-old business family in Bangalore, but he's taken it forward into a very, very new direction with the kind of work that he's doing on the Hub. I'm super glad to have you on the show. I'm looking forward to your insights on how you built it. But if I were to ask you to introduce yourself, and it's very hard to introduce serial entrepreneurs, I hope you know that. But if I were to ask you to introduce yourself, how would you do that?
Firstly, thank you, Vineet, for having me on. More than anything else, I'm here just to have a conversation with you to learn. I think the space in which we're operating today, the more people you talk to, the more insight you get, the more clarity you get in terms of which direction you can take your business in. So thanks for giving this time today. I would describe myself in 3 words. I went through this exercise with my team. I told them, guys, we are building a creative agency. We're telling clients we'll do personal PR for them. Let me be the guinea pig, right? First, help me describe myself in 3 words. So the words that we came up with over the course of almost a week that we spent on this is founder, creator, and community builder. And I think
Right.
those 3 words pretty much encompass everything that I'm setting out to do with my life.
I love it, dude. I think that kind of clarity I haven't heard from folks who might have spent twice as much time in the industry about describing themselves. So already we're off to a great start. And I can tell why someone from your team wrote to me saying you need to have this guy on the show. So already off to a great start. Tell us about the Hub, man. Tell us about what you guys do at the Hub in Bengaluru. I know you said before we started recording that you've got a space where a bunch of creative individuals are coming in all day, jamming, making connections, building things. But give us a little bit more detail.
Sure. So just last Sunday, we had Sofa Sounds doing an amazing offline event at the Hub. Where our goal has always been to create a safe space where creative people, artists, no matter how big or how small, can feel comfortable walking into our doors, having a cup of coffee, meeting other creators, and then creating magic. We see our role as kind of just supporting and moderating that ecosystem in which all of these collaborations can happen. But that's not always, that was not always the plan. So when I graduated college and came back, I had the startup bug. Back then, about 6 years ago, there was that Startup India, Stand Up India movement that was taking the country
Right.
by storm.
Right.
So I'm this little kid. I've studied in Bangalore, gone to USC in LA, did my undergrad entrepreneurship, coming back full energy. I'm gonna build my startup. This is my time, right? Um, Come back, spent almost 6 months meeting and talking to hundreds of people, having no clue what it is that my startup would do.
Right.
Um, Finally, I think about 6 months in, my dad said, "You are not going to start something. I'm just going to tell you what to do, and then you figure it out from there." So, where we're sitting in today, I'm sitting in a podcasting studio that's part of a co working space, that's part of a larger shared space ecosystem with co living and event spaces. We're located in the heart of Bangalore at a historic property called Safina Plaza.
Right.
And this part of the property was a underperforming hotel asset. So back then we had a hotel that was not performing. My dad said, "What's the worst that can happen? Use your startup degree and go do something over there. Make it, turn it around, right?" Um, I saw co-working kicking off a lot in India and the US, but I think co-living wasn't as a concept. It wasn't what it is today, right? If you tell anyone what co-living is, you have a fair idea of what you can expect. The Hub started out as a co-living space. Our first two
Right.
years, we literally were doing co-living only. We kind of branched out because a lot of our co-living members wanted a place to work and they wanted to interact and network with people. We kind of branched into co-working. Once we had co-living and co-working, it was an organic extension that happened because we started doing a lot of events for our members. And obviously we were one of the first back then as a real estate player to care about our Instagram. So whatever we were doing, we were putting it on Instagram. And a lot of people in Bangalore started saying, hey, can we come? What's happening? Is this members only? Can we also participate? So we opened it up. We started doing events as like a town hall where anyone in the
Right.
community could come and engage with our events.
Right.
So kind of that was the progression pre-pandemic, co-living, co-working events. We've had thousands of members that have called the home that have called the hub their home. They've either lived here, they've worked here, they've attended workshops, events, seminars here. And it was an amazing time, right? We were growing, new people were coming in, we were constantly reinvesting in the business, upgrading the facilities. Obviously, then COVID had other plans. We were suddenly overnight kind of in this position like, hey, what do we do now? Like, do we kind of downscale a little bit and lay low for 1-2 years, or do we kind of say no, we're going to like challenge this and try and do something really radical? Obviously everyone in our team was very young. We wanted to do something. More than anything else, we just wanted to keep our minds occupied, right, at that point.
Mhm.
So we said, what's our core USP? We want to build community. We want to connect people. I'm sure we can figure out a way to do this online.
Right.
And since then, our digital wing kind of was created about 2.5 years ago. And that's been a whole other journey that we've kind of been going on, which I'd be happy to talk about a little bit as the podcast progresses.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this right at the outset, right? What problem did you intend to set out to solve? And then along the way, what other really interesting problems did you discover that you were like, hey, I'm going to do that and that and that as well, right? Like, if you can give us a quick lowdown.
Yeah, I mean, I've been asked this many times. I've thought about it. And I think the answer that I feel is the most honest is the problem we set out to solve was loneliness. So even before we started co-living, there were many places people could live. There were PGs, they were kind of staying with their mom, dad, they were clubbing together and getting apartments, but there was no vibe, there was no connectivity amongst, like, you had that in college. I experienced it 4 years, right? I had a great time. And I came back and I felt the disconnect. Yeah, I have my family, but it's not the same thing, right? That spirit of kind of that atmosphere and the vibe of like you're with people that are building and like, that hustle culture.
Like sort of college frat dorm room, that openness as well, but that drive as well. I remember on one of the previous episodes that we were talking about IIT education, and the guy said, man, IIT is not about great professors, right? If you're putting really smart people in a room together, giving them the environment to play around, they will do something fun that comes out of it. So sounds like you set out to do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, back then I also didn't have a clear vision. I wanted to do something. I wanted to do something where I could see myself be a customer, and we had this opportunity, and it was born, and we kept iterating on it, and it just morphed into what it is today, I guess.
Right. And apart from that loneliness problem right at the beginning, right, which is again a very human need, connect, feeling connected, connection with other people, and the allied benefits of motivation, inspiration, doing something with your life, all of that, right? What other problems did you encounter along the way that felt like, hey, this is a natural extension of what I'm trying to do here, I'm going to try and do this as well, right? And I'm building up to the big piece that I want to really talk to you about, which is something that's very close to my heart, which is the creator house. But tell us a little bit more about allied problems that you looked at solving.
So we realized, right, again, this I can say now, I set out to solve loneliness. Back then I would not have thought that, right? Back then I would have thought, I have an asset, my job is to monetize this, do it in a new innovative way. So from our perspective, I wanted to fill up the property, right? It was a hotel. We tried working with players like Oyo to kind of fill it up. We saw the ups and downs of that. We wanted to build our own brand, and we wanted to keep the property full. We wanted the satisfaction, not only that money is coming in, but the place is being used to its full potential, right? We have a great
Right.
property, let people enjoy it, was just the kind of idea. So
Right.
from the customer's perspective, right, you're talking about office space in the heart of the city. Again, 5 years ago, there was no concept of I can get a seat for 5 or 10,000 bucks,
Right.
right? You had to go lease a whole office. There were so many problems we were solving. There was no flexibility. There were contracts. When it comes to co-living, people were they were even now I see a lot of people who come to us. They're like, my landlord said you can't have non-veg. I can't have my girlfriend over. Lights have to be out. I can't play music. So these were, today it sounds like a joke, but these were real issues that people were, these were pain points in the customer's life, and that's why they were like, oh, we
Mhm.
want to come to a place like the Hub. We didn't know you guys existed. Lifesaver, like this, it's a better quality of life. So that's what we were trying to give them. Our property was not very hi-fi. We didn't have any great amenities. It was more the kind of, we didn't have rules, we had
Mhm.
guidelines, right? As a
Mhm.
community,
Mhm.
let's not, as long as you don't disturb anybody else, we'll take you in. You can live here, you can work here, you can host events. Is this the first event you're ever hosting? No problem, we'll help you market it. We have a community on Instagram. We'll help you sell the tickets, we'll help you advertise it, right? So I think that's the real value proposition that we were able to bring, and that's how we got started.
Love it, man. Sounds amazing. Before I ask you a little bit more, how does someone get a spot here? Like, what does it cost? What comes with it? I'd love to know.
Sure. So we're pretty simple and flexible. In
Mhm.
co-living, we have two options. We have 15,000 a month and 30,000 a month. You can either
Mhm.
share the room with someone and have a roommate,
That's
or
that's really like efficient, man.
yes, or you can take a
I mean,
private
even
room.
by Bangalore standards, I live in Bombay. I pay rent out of my kidney, but
Yeah.
that's amazing, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. So with a little bit of even in COVID, there were times we were full, but with the exception of that, we've always run at 100% occupancy for that very
Mhm.
reason that we want to provide a value of we want to give maximum value to the customer at a fair price, and we want
Got
to
it.
build a volume business.
Got it. And did COVID affect you the way it affected sort of other living spaces? Were there rules that came in that said, hey, you can't have people here, you can't gather? How did you guys deal with that?
So yeah, definitely it did affect us. Co-living was affected a little bit.
Mhm.
Co-working was wiped out. No one obviously
Right.
needed an office space. I'll tell you a little bit about our attempts to try and pivot our co-working business into all kinds of crazy ideas. But yeah, the core essence of co-living was lost to some extent because we
Mhm.
have a beautiful rooftop, and
Right.
we used to have events called, there was this event called the Huddle, where once a
Right.
month, open bar, good food, everyone comes together, plays games, gets to know each other. Incredible, like that one event alone is what people will tell you the reason they want to live here, right? And also people in the community who have not had the chance to live here if they're full, to come and experience what life at the Hub might look like, right? Great
Right.
networking event. So
Right.
things like that. But again, we kind of we tried our best to take that experience to the room. We did over, I think we're the only, I won't even say co-living space, I'll say the only brand in year one of lockdown. We did 250 Instagram lives.
Oh,
i
wow.
I personally hosted about 150 of them. So
Wow.
we found ways to kind of entertain people, take food to their room, kind of not let that community aspect go. And back then it may not have made sense from a co-living business model perspective, but I guess that's the reason we got good at community, right? At understanding and taking care of people and actually caring for them, and then saying that okay, we'll build a business around that later.
Got it. Love it. And are you guys profitable?
Yeah, so when we've not raised any funding, we're a startup within a family business. So yes, I
Mhm.
feel very privileged that I have my family's backing. I can kind of leverage our assets, but we've not raised any funding. We've actually expanded to a second location almost three
Mhm.
years ago,
Mhm.
and we don't have great ambitions to go and open thousands of beds. We're very happy keeping a decent sized portfolio, but really a closely knit community on which we plan on building different kinds of business models, such as our media house, our creator house, and our agency.
Love it. And we'll talk about those aspects. Let me ask you this, right? And there's been a spectacular self spontaneous combustion of a big co-working brand that we are not going to name on this show so that we don't jinx it. But what
Uh-huh.
lessons have you taken out of that, man? Or have you just been like, that's a different bubble, I'm going to focus on what I need to do?
No, I actually just saw the documentary
Mhm.
recently. I loved it, right? And I've looked up to that brand. as a kid, coming back to India, saying that, see what's possible. And like, initially when we were starting out co-living, co-working, I had a lot of questions to answer, including from my grandfather, saying, we want grade A tenants, what is this, they'll flexibility, how does it work? So these are all interesting kind of obstacles that I personally had to overcome. And I think there are a lot of learnings, not just for us as a shared space startup, but for the whole startup ecosystem, right? Without a core business model with stable cash flow, it's easy to get distracted with the word community and just trying to do things for people. We've also been in that phase where we've gone too deep into community, let's say. I think the most important learning there is that it's about a balance. You have to balance your long-term vision and your need for building community with a realistic, conservative approach fiscally. And I think that's been the biggest learning for me. That's as a founder trying to operate in this space and survive in this space.
Love it, man. I mean, really, you hit the nail on the head, right? Your fiscal discipline needs to outweigh your fascination with the space, right? Or what is possible. Because what is possible? You can do masquerade balls every day of the year. Is that what's bringing you revenue? Maybe not. Who knows? But love it. Love hearing about that from you. Before we go into our break, what was the toughest part about convincing your family that this is the right thing to do? Now I understand that it's an NPA. You've got obviously the privilege of your family backing, etc. But it's not a walk in the park, right? If you've got a father and a grandfather and a mother and, and your entire family running a business for 100 years, a brand new idea is often harder to pitch because they know the city, they know the people, they know how the money works. What was the hardest part about that?
I think in my case, it's slightly funny story. My dad is my biggest supporter in life, and for that is my biggest blessing.
Right.
The hardest part for me was to balance between my dad, who would blindly say, I'll back you. And there it's just about, now I shouldn't let him down. So there was this internal pressure, right? And from my granddad's perspective, this property that we're in had the brand he had built 35 years ago called Safina Hotel. So replacing his brand with the hub, literally the sign replaceal, right? And how I overcame that was interesting, because I couldn't, till I was sure this would work, I couldn't do that. Entire year of the hub, our banner, our main entrance hoarding said Safina Hotels. And with that, we pulled it off still. And by the end of that year, I was able to take the numbers, go to my granddad and say, can I please make the switch? I've kind of validating the business model here.
Love it, man. Love it. That must have been both a proud and a very personal moment for your family. I mean, super interesting. We're going to come back after these messages to continue our chat with Azaan. Don't go anywhere. This is Storytellers and Storysellers with me, Vineet Kanabar.
Hello, everybody. It's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On the Life Manifestos, Arena shells out 10 worthwhile lessons on how to be self-dependent on an Independence Day special. On A Niche Thing, Anish is in conversation with Shivani Sambhare. She is the founder of The Art Insider, and they discuss how one can start an affordable art collection. On the Vox podcast, I talk to Carrie Hoffman. She is the CEO of PRX. We talk about the progress of the podcasting business across the globe. Really, really fun conversation. Appreciate Carrie for taking the time. On the finale of Do What Floats Your Boat, Nani speaks to Aman Gupta, co-founder and CMO of Boat Lifestyle. They discuss his entrepreneurial journey and inspiration. And on Cider Says It's Cock and Bull, Cider Sayushi, Vikramaditya and Sriram talk about the attack on author Salman Rushdie. Once again, I'd like to remind you all, please do check out our merch. It's available on IVM Podcast website. Go click the shop tab and you'll be able to see our first collections of t-shirts. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Remember, we got a bunch of YouTube channels as well. And if you want to check that out, go to our website, ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. We have a list of all those channels. And remember, do tell a friend if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter. Word of mouth is one of the most important and best ways for us to get the word out about this podcast. Also, it's a way for you to have discussions about a podcast with your friends. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, both Lifestyle, Checkpoint Software, Small Case, and Intel vPro. Thank you so much for making this possible.
And we're back on Storytellers and Storysellers. We're talking to Azaan Feroze Sait from the Hub, Bengaluru. Azaan, before we went into the break, you told me that there are different aspects of your business. There's the community co-living space, there's the agency that you're building, which is super interesting anyway. But what I am most interested in talking to you about is the creator house concept. Now, for my listeners who are uninitiated into what a creator house is, it's a shared space between people who are creators from different walks of life. Now, I know every time someone says the word creator, aapke dimag mein ek influencer aata hai, but that's not true. Creators are people who are learning how to use the camera well. They are people who are learning how to write screenplays. They are people who are learning how to do music and sound. There are people who are learning how to push content out and distribution. So there's an entire ecosystem, right? In the West, even in South Korea for that matter. Actually, it's South Korea where it really started. The whole concept of a gamer house or a creator house where creators would come together, live together. That environment of creativity, that environment of putting yourself out there really becomes a mutually beneficial space. I've been trying to influence a bunch of creator houses in India. I've been talking to a bunch of brands about it. I've been talking to a few creator teams as well. But I'm super glad to hear that Azaan and the team at the Hub have put together some plans for the creator house. So lay it on us, man. Tell us about what the creator house at the Hub is all about.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess from day one, this has been something that we've found very fascinating, right? If you set out to build a co-living space, the goal is to build a safe space where creative people can come together and then see where it goes. So I think very similar concepts. Over the years, we happened to realize our audience started telling us that because we were so relaxed, we had a heavy skew of artists, even though we don't like to profile and go into demographics and say this is our age group and stuff. We always had artists coming in. We had art workshops. We saw collaborations happen. But what really pushed us into becoming a creator house was in the pandemic. So in the pandemic, for the first time, we were running at 100% occupancy, 3.5 years, and suddenly we had a number of rooms available, right? Not just in our co-living space, but our entire co-working space was kind of vacant. So we started to say, can we innovate? Can we use this space in some other way? We don't think we're going to be able to monetize it based on the current way we're running. Can we monetize it some other way? Or can we at least create something that uses this so it doesn't go to waste, right? It's a perishable product. In that process, a couple of small experiments we ran. The room we're sitting in right now was our meeting room. We made it into a podcasting studio. We said, okay, people may not come and meet in person, but people creating at scale for people online back then, if you know Zoom and everything taking off, maybe we can give them a more soundproofed environment with a good mic and good infrastructure that they can access by the hour. So small experiments like this kind of added on to build our creator house. We launched a very interesting program called it's one of my favorite programs out of everything we do at the Hub. It's called the Resident Artist Grant.
Right.
So we said, okay, we have all these open rooms. People have left Bangalore. Can we create content and do something interesting by bartering our space in exchange for content?
Right.
So we put out this program on Instagram, instantly got over 300 applications. It caught fire. Amazing artists from all over the country applied. Some people were not even artists. They were creators, graphic designers, video editors, painters, mural artists. And we slowly started bringing people into the Hub. 2 people, 3 people, 4 people at a time. And it's just kind of built very slowly, organically over 2 years. Even now, if you walk around the Hub, if you look at the walls, the entire second floor is painted by 2 artists that lived here. A lot of our designs that you see on our website was designed by a graphic designer who was in this program. So it's happened very slowly. We've also figured it out. We made some mistakes along the way. Some amazing relationships have been built along the way. And we've kind of tried to build each time and say, okay, we've done this. What can we do more next? How do we level it up even more? And then as COVID started fading out, people started coming back out into the cities, they started coming back out into our space. We then saw a different need, right? All these creators that were born in the pandemic, right, sitting at home and kind of creating content, the one thing they all crave, they want to get out of their room and they want to be in an aesthetic place where they can kind of have variety in terms of the backgrounds and the place they're walking in and the people they're interacting with. So
Right.
it kind of played very well into that, because during the pandemic they were consuming our content with our lives and our Instagram. We grew from about 15,000 to 50,000 in that 2 year period. And after they got the chance to come and make content with us or interact with the people that were part of those circles and just kind of build and see where it goes. So it became this super fun experiment that even today we're still learning from.
Love it, man. Absolutely, absolutely brilliant. Where do you want to take this? Right. This is again the creator incubation space reminds me of, and don't get a big head about it, but reminds me of how art patrons have really performed over the years, right? It is art patrons who have leased out galleries for artists, whether it's, you want to go back to the Renaissance period with the Renaissance artists and why their stories still survive or why their paintings still survive while other artists are lost, because they had great patrons, right? Or you go back to someone that's more recent, like a Van Hoff, right? So he survives because there's an art patron who made sure his stuff survived, right? Seems like you're building up to something like that, right? You're creating a space that allows creators to coalesce. You're enabling them to create, providing resources, providing guidance, providing a safe space to create, right? But where do you want to build this to? What is the sort of big hairy goal that you have for the hub on the creator side?
So I think that's something that we're still figuring out, right? I'll tell you what we've done so far. I can tell you a little bit about what we're trying to do, let's say in the next 3 months. But
Sure.
what that big goal is, I think I'm almost entertained by the fact that how uncertain that long-term vision is, because
Right.
there's so many different paths that we could choose to take. If you can capture storytelling and content right, I truly believe you can decide which path you take to monetize.
Sure.
You can't take all of them. You can, with the simple example of we've seen with creators themselves, right? You can sell merch, you can sell courses, you can open up subscriptions. I think we have that option, but
Mhm.
till we perfect our storytelling and stabilize our kind of approach to growing, I don't think we have figured out how we plan to monetize. But I'll tell you
Right.
a couple of things we have figured out, right?
Mhm.
So, being a central hub, we want to hire creators. Every person in our team is a creator. We have 25 people in our team.
Mhm.
We had 4 when the pandemic started. Uh,
Right.
After those 4, every person come in as a creator. They either create on Instagram, they either write on LinkedIn, they're designers, they're video editors, producers. Um, One, we get that if we like a creator that we see in our ecosystem, we want them to be part of our team.
Mhm.
2, the reason we built agency is because we realized everything we want to build in terms of our community on across social media platforms as a media company um, is a long-term game. So a lot of it is give value, right? Teach people about the creator economy, put out reels, put out content, put out carousels, right? Write blogs. The monetization for that takes time. You have to work with the right partners, the right opportunities come. We
Mhm.
need something to keep the cash flow going. And that's why we kind of have an agency wing where we work with brands that want to leverage the same creators. We truly believe creators are the new agency, right?
Mhm.
What one creator can do for you can replace an entire agency and a team. They can conceptualize
Debatable, but sure.
in fair enough. Agree to disagree. Um,
No, no, I'm
so
not disagreeing. I'm
uh,
just saying debatable, but sure.
Correct. So what we're trying to say is, if one creator can as an influencer campaign, can conceptualize, shoot, edit, distribute, and get you a certain ROI, what if we bring 25 creators together and
Mhm.
structure it as an agency? What's the value you can provide then to a brand,
Sure.
right? So that's keeping our cash flow going on a day-to-day basis, working with clients on long-term retainer projects, on one-off projects. But the true dream is to build our own media entity that's India's largest and fastest growing creator economy focused media entity, right? And that's what my passion and that's what I'm trying to drive every day at the hub is all about.
So what does that mean? Break it down for us, right? Are you, when you say largest and fastest growing media entity, do you want to enable creators to figure out how best to monetize? Do you want to enable creators to grow fastest in their footprint? Where is the focus right now?
So it's all of it, right? It's
Right.
being on a journey with the creator and
Mhm.
figuring out whatever it is they need to figure out, because at the hub, as a community, right, there is a brand, there is a creator, and we see ourselves in the middle as a community.
Mhm.
So we're a community of creators. We're trying to solve the same problems. How to grow faster. Okay, we've gone, carousels were working, but now reels are working. How do you do reels better? How do you go viral? Okay, we need to go beyond Instagram. It's time to go to YouTube. It's time to start a newsletter, right? Whatever we're solving for ourselves, we're looking and learning from the creators, because whether you're a community or creator, that's the way to grow. That's the way to monetize.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of that documenting the process of what we're doing every day is what creators truly find valuable, right? How is the hub
Wonderful.
doing what it's doing? How can I learn, and vice versa?
Wonderful. I think that's very vital, but very underserved part of the value chain right now, right? And I felt this for the longest time, and I think it's one of the reasons why I started this show as well. Is yeah, कोई documenting कर रहा है, you know. I grew because I started posting more regularly. Sure, but what did you post? What was your strategy? What analytics did you look at? How did you analyze your audience? How did you analyze what formats to create? Stuff like that, right? And it's wonderful that you guys are putting this together and learning from creators and documenting it so that those creators can learn from you as well. Let me ask you this, right? The creator economy has really exploded. Pandemic has helped supercharge it even further, right? This has led to massive competition, right? A lot of these guys are looking at brands to come in and monetize for them. A lot of them have an idea of a product line or D2C or any other kind of thing. How are you really looking at this space going forward, right? Do you expect there to be enough space for all types of creators? Do you expect a certain type of creator um, or creators to do better? What are the traits that in creators that you see are vital for to survive this kind of competition?
I think there are many approaches can win. There's no denying that keeping a closed mindset and dominating and focusing on yourself will work. It will
Mhm.
always work, right?
Mhm.
For us, whether it's us or the creators we work with, it becomes why are you a creator?
Hmm.
What kind of a journey do you want to have? You want to do it alone, or do you want to do it as a group? You want to share the highs and the lows, right? So we've always made that call. We're a build-in open company.
Mhm.
We document what we're doing today. If we did something that worked today on Instagram, it will be, if we did it on a post, our story will tell you that it worked. Go do it, and you also benefit. Same thing, if we meet someone before the deal is closed, it's on LinkedIn. We're doing something with this, there's a collaboration coming. If the deal works, we put that on LinkedIn. When the deal is done, we put our case study publicly on LinkedIn. This is how
Love
we
it.
did it, this is the result it got us. Here are the mistakes also we made, which we hope you guys don't make, right? And
Right.
at least with our approach, I truly believe if you commit to that mindset, the world is abundant. If you
Right.
help people, people will help you. I cannot tell you the amount of times we get brand deals from people that we've worked with or someone that we've helped, where we're like, we don't have we don't have an outbound strategy at the hub. It's just
Mhm.
managing inbound.
Right. Love it, man. Love it. I mean, I really appreciate it when young CEOs or young founders have not just clarity but conviction in that clarity. Right? It's a really it makes doing this show worth it. I'll tell you that. So thanks for that. I mean, thanks for sharing. Right? Tell me this, and as we wind up the last couple of questions, what are your personal principles towards entrepreneurship? And you spoke about openness and learning from others as well, but what are your principles towards team building? How do you hire? what is it that you look at? And I'm asking you this because I'm sure a lot of young people listening to this show would want to check out how it is working at maybe the hub. So what's your point of view on hiring, on team building? What do you look at? Would love to know.
I mean, to be honest, I'm still figuring it out. We're making so many mistakes every day. I think our biggest maybe strength as a company is that we're not too scared to try, right? Like the way things are set up in our time, our biggest blessing is that the downside is so limited. It's so easy to just try things in a simple way and then get feedback from people, even if it's as simple as a story poll, right? So keeping that constant communication channel open with the people you're building around. If you have a community, really understand how to get their input and then show them that you're listening. If you don't have a community, build that community. There are so many people that just want to support each other, right? But I guess the one key thing that I'm beginning to realize is very important, because as a company, when you hire people, you're playing with their future and their lives, is purpose. You could be a great designer, but are you joining us because you want to use design to help people to build a community and then figure out what we're going to do with it? Or do you want to design for Coca-Cola? That intrinsic drive, it's very important for founders to understand and match that to the purpose of their company, if that's going to be a good fit. I think that's been a very recent learning for me. I'm still figuring it out, but it's something that I'm very fascinated about. I keep thinking about.
Love it. I mean, that's a very interesting line that you've drawn, saying, hey, the folks that I want coming into my business should share this value of community, of being open to exchange, being open to spending their time helping people, not with the expectation of getting help back, but because that's what we're building this company for, right? And in a way, when I really think about it, it goes back to your initial point of trying to solve for loneliness, because people have great ideas all the time, right? Some people don't know how to bring them to life. Some people don't know whether it's a good idea or not. Some people don't have that conviction. And it's very important, in my opinion and in my experience, that you talk to other people about building and growing your ideas. That value exchange is, pardon the reuse of the word, invaluable, right? And I'm glad that you put that up front as a mantra when you're looking at hiring. I'm not going to ask you to give advice to budding creators, because I think you're all full of advice. Anyway, right? But tell me about your personal life, man. I think I never ask any of my guests about their personal life, but I feel compelled to ask you that at 28, you seem to be doing well for yourself. What do you do for fun?
I think this is the one point in the podcast you'll hear me pause. I think it sounds cliched, but I'm so tied to my work, because through my work, I find ways to give back. Through my work, I find ways to socialize, right? I've kind of incorporated these key elements of what make me happy and kind of put it into the hub. So I spend a great amount of time just kind of working with the hub on projects that I care about, incorporating it into it. But other than that, I think family is really important to me. It's the reason I'm back in India. I was going to work at that said company you mentioned earlier on. When I
Right.
graduated college, I had a job offer
Aren't you
from
glad
that.
you didn't?
That's what my dad says, right? So very glad. But yeah, I truly enjoy spending time with my grandparents, my parents. I have two lovely dogs, Zuzu and Elsa. Zuzu's our mascot at the hub. He's on the
Right.
back of our brand manual.
Oh, isn't he adorable?
He was my dog in college. I brought him back down with me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think it's the simple things, right? Like when you're working so hard, trying to do so many things, I just enjoy some me time, resting, sleeping, catching up on Netflix, and recharging my batteries for the next week, right?
Love it. Love it. Before I close this out, LA or Bangalore?
You didn't. Vineet, you didn't. Bangalore to live and build in, LA to take a break once a year.
LA to take a break. Yeah. Venice Beach calling you. Love it. I think that's our show. Azaan, this was wonderful. I think I really enjoyed your chat. I think when you started talking, you said you hope to learn something. I think the reverse is pretty true. I've learned a fair bit about you, and I'm super inspired by how you're approaching building the hub and all your allied businesses. Right. I think the time is right for something like this to really scale in India. But I'm glad that you're looking at it not from a $48 billion valuation game, but more from adding value to people's lives and really building local. Right. I think it's super
Yeah.
important and super inspiring, like I said, to meet young Indian folks building for India and really going local and solving problems. Shout out to both your dad and to your granddad for standing by you, man. And I hope you have a brilliant future with the hub. I hope you enjoyed this chat.
I really did, Vinny. Thank you so much again for the opportunity. It means a lot. I really appreciate it. And you have a friend and a home in Bangalore. Anytime you're visiting, anything you need, we genuinely love helping people, working with them, and learning in the process. We're always here for you if you need anything here.
Super sweet of you, man. That's it. That's our show for today. We were talking to Azaan Feroze Sait from the hub Bengaluru. This is me, Vineet Kanabar, saying goodbye.